Welcome to Republican Roundtable. I'm your guest host, Sean Holster. Joining us to discuss the close of the last legislative session is State Senator Eric Lucero. Eric, great to see you.
Thanks for having me. It's always an honor to join the Republican Roundtable and discuss the very important topics that are impacting Minnesotans across this great state.
Describe, from your perspective, if you could, what was this roller coaster of a session like, being as
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been very frustrating. We started the session in 2024 with the understanding of what happened in the previous session, 2023, last year, where it was just steamrolling a very radical, very progressive agenda right over the 49% of Minnesotans who voted against the Senate Democrat majority, again, that holds the Senate by one seat. So we started the session, and they began to have a similar mindset of just steamrolling and pushing things through. Now, they gave the appearance of some token legislation that they were giving some bill hearings, including myself, on, again, very minor pieces of legislation to give that appearance of more cooperative bipartisanship. But as we saw, as the weeks ticked by, that clearly was not the case. They were continuing to push through a very radical agenda that by 49% of Minnesotans who did not vote for the Democrat majority, with a 34-33 split of Democrat-Republican, they simply wanted to move their agenda forward independent of what the will of Minnesotans was. Then we had events happen like Senator Mitchell and the burglary that occurred up in Detroit Lakes. We had other events that are just simply demonstrating that the Democrat majority is more concerned with maintaining power than they are with advancing the best interests of the state of Minnesota.
Well, and steamrolling seems to be a unifying term or concept between this session and the session previous with this trifecta. Where does this seeming resistance to any sort of compromise, any sort of give and take from the DFL, why is there seem to be such a heavy hand of authority exercised?
Absolutely. Well, what we've seen several years back, for those who recall, former President Obama, he made a statement. He seeks to fundamentally transform America. Now, that was happening, or his statement was in the context of the national level, but we know the Democrat Party, they're working in synergy, whether it be the national, state, or even local levels. This radical progressive mindset of fundamentally transforming America or the state or our local communities is what they are seeking to advance, to use their power to push this Marxist, communist, collectivist mentality, which is the opposite of the foundation of our great republic.
I'd like to explore that a little bit if we could. The interconnectedness of the federal, state, and local level and the dynamic of that. How is that actually mechanically working?
So the leftist mindset is unified. And what they do is they work together, whether they're at the local school board, local city council, county commissioner level, state legislative level, or the federal level legislative offices that go to D.C., they have this leftist progressive mindset to use their office to advance this collectivist mentality and policies that result in increased costs, erosion of individual liberty, and an advancement, again, of this collectivist mindset. Now, how they work together, there are think tanks, the media, those that are the office holders themselves, all of these various interests working together to advance their cause. And they all work together in a unified fashion, regardless of the role that they have, regardless of the office that they hold, in the furthering of what they believe to be the cause of collectivism and the erosion of individual liberty while government and the larger big brother continues to grow.
Would it be fair to say that this is how they build their bench?
Absolutely.
For elected offices along
100%.
the way on the local level? in unison with the state level, in coordination with the federal level?
And I would say it even begins, and we've seen witness here in the last number of years, that the building of their bench even begins before local office. It begins even at the level of community activist or different roles that they have before being an elected office to organize, and whether it be a union leadership, whether it be some nonprofit, whether it be a community organizer in any community, rounding up and advancing the leftist progressive cause, which then, if they demonstrate that, they do get elected to local office or the legislative office, which we're seeing. There are some right now that are elected as state representative and state senator who their previous role, community activists, they don't have any life experience. They've never been out there and put themselves at risk of being a business owner, starting a business, hiring others, having to sign a paycheck.
So more of a theoretical approach to life as a citizen of Minneapolis, of Minnesota, of whatever locality.
Yeah.
I too know of a few legislators that have that CV. How does the right develop that same sensibility, that same ethos, that same bench building capacity? Where do you think we even start?
You know, one of the things that I've observed in my time in office, by the way, so I currently have the office of state senator. Mm-hmm. It's a true honor and privilege. I represent the great communities of Albertville, St. Michael, Otsego, Elk River, and surrounding areas. And in my present capacity as senator, I've been in office before that as state representative for 8 years. So I've been in office for 10 years. And in my observation of time in office, I have seen the left, generally speaking, they look at government as a profession. They look at government as a means to advance the most radical textbook, as you mentioned, theoretical. You know, the only place that communism and Marxism works is in the textbook. Every place it's ever been tried, it's an abysmal failure.
An example, if I
Sure,
may,
sure.
An example I'm thinking of, the paint bill.
Yes.
No more than, 1 gallon or 5 gallons?
You have to hire a licensed contractor to come in and paint your house.
And wasn't there a light switch bill
Yes.
as well? This would be, in my mind, an example of, would it be fair to say that the methodology, the thought pattern of the socialist, the communist ethos, the leftist ethos that is running through the legislature right now, is death by 1,000 cuts?
Well, that's exactly it. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It's eventually going to, if you throw on toothpicks onto the camel's back, eventually it's going to crumble. There's going to be that final toothpick. And the camel is our great business community. The camel holding up all this weight is individuals, families working their fingers to the bone just to survive, just to pay for the cost of gas, to pay for the cost of groceries, to pay for the cost of childcare, to pay for the cost of rent or housing. It's all skyrocketing. And each and every one of these cuts, whether it be by a death by 1,000 cuts or whether it be the toothpicks on the camel's back, in and of themselves, they may not mean a lot. But we have gotten to a point in our society where they have added up now and they are crushing the backs of businesses, families, and individuals. And it just doesn't work. And we're seeing businesses leave, we're seeing people leave. But just to finish the thought on the previous question, and that is, well, that's the observation of the left. My observation of the left is that they look at this as a profession. Those of us on the right who decide to make the sacrifice to hold elective office, it is just that. It is a true sacrifice. Whether we are giving up our careers for a period of time, sacrifice away from family, there is a true cost to the public office and serving in this role. Whereas the left, because it's a profession to them, it's an advancement. It advances their career. And I've seen this over and over and over again.
Well, business, family. Okay, light switches and paint buckets. We have business right here. Let's move on to family. Well, last session, this session. This session, the introduction of the Equal Rights Amendment that did not pass, but last legislative session, bills in regards to reproductive freedom or reproductive health, whichever softening of those phrases anybody chooses to use, or gender transition. Now, on the surface, they seem to be one issue in and of themselves, but okay, with parental notice included in that, with reporting standards for numbers and failures of abortion procedures. Would it be fair to say that is yet another angle of approach of, okay, here is the destabilization of the family
100%.
through a number of small, insidious measures?
The policies that the radical progressive left is pushing are an attack on the family, are an attack on individualism, are a direct assault on the ability of people to self-determine the outcomes of their life, to make decisions, go down this path, or this path as they pursue happiness. The left seeks to put up roadblocks and make people dependent on government. And these policies are just that, whether it be, as you mentioned, the ERA. This is not your grandma's ERA. It's the greatest phrase that I've heard, because the ERA of the 70s is completely something I think each and every one of us supports. But whereas they've borrowed the same language and they've moved it into 2024, it is not the same verbiage that is underneath the surface. They're using the same ERA acronym, but the actual substance of their verbiage is very different. Whether it be the abortion, as you were talking about, the reproductive rights as they frame it. They always use flowery language. But the reality is, in the state of Minnesota now, a minor cannot get a piercing, their ears pierced, for example, without parental permission. A minor cannot get a tattoo without parental consent. A minor cannot use a tanning booth. A minor cannot engage in a whole host of activities. In fact, you have to be 21 years old now to buy cigarettes. Okay, but despite all this, you can be 10 years old to mutilate your body, to go through different medical procedures that are going to create lifelong consequences without the consent or knowledge of a parent. It defies logic in every reasonable sense of the word.
The word sanctuary state keeps being thrown around for any number of these issues.
Yes.
Wrong, accurate, inaccurate. In culmination, would it be fair to say that we are becoming a sanctuary state of dysfunction?
100%.
And why? Make it make sense. How can this be? What is the possible benefit of this kind of snowballing?
Yes. The only possible benefit that I can see is it is a continuance or their attempt to maintain their throat hold grip on power. Aside from that, it doesn't make sense. I can't help to make it sense. I do not know, other than their retaining power, these policies, human history demonstrates that you need to have a semblance of, in the enforcing of law, you need to have a common bond, a common value set for the most part, in order for a society to have that firm foundation that allows, again, the foundation of our country is to maximize individual liberty, and knowing that each individual has different definitions of happiness. For some, happiness is wealth accumulation. For some, happiness is defined as spending time with others and socializing. For some, it's experiences. But we all have a different definition, and the core of our republic is to allow people to pursue happiness without government getting in the way. And that's where the policies the radical left is promoting, it doesn't make sense. It's a hindrance to all of that. And human history demonstrates it's only going to make our quality of life decrease and the cost of our living to increase.
Well, and that's the other component, the lack of enforcement of the rule of law. Surprise, surprise, resident of Hennepin County, Mary Moriarty. No matter how many times someone can be arrested, the revolving door non-prosecution. Can the legislature do anything about Mary Moriarty or other county attorneys, prosecutors? This is not a problem exclusive to Minnesota or Minneapolis. What could a state legislature do to address this?
I suppose, so right now, whether it is a peace officer, whether it is a district attorney, or others in the criminal justice continuum there, we grant discretion. Discretion is part of the role. We want our peace officers to have discretion when they're doing their service. We want district attorneys to have discretion what to prosecute, not to prosecute, what to charge, what not to charge, etc. We can't be so prescriptive at the legislative level and try to push that down. So I'm not, I don't have an immediate answer to that question.
Oh, right.
But here's the reality, is that whether they are a peace officer or a district attorney or any other capacity, we need to have confidence that they are going to work to use their office, use their role to advance the safety and security of the entire population. And when they're not doing that, which is clearly the case, as we see in Moriarty's case,
absolutely,
it is up to the media to convey the reality of what's happening, and then it is up to the voters of that district. In this case, Mary Moriarty is a Hennepin County DA, so every resident of Hennepin County, it is their responsibility to hold her accountable and either go through the steps that are necessary to have a recall and or at the next time she's up for office to vote her out. But I do not have the confidence that Hennepin County residents are going to be empowered with the necessary information in this particular scenario to make an informed decision. Why? Because the media they are one of the allies of the radical progressive left. They are not advancing the information necessary for an informed population. Instead, corporate media is using their role to either suppress information or to highlight other information to advance a particular agenda. And it is not healthy for us to maintain our republic when we have an uninformed populace who is being deprived of necessary information to hold their elected officials accountable.
What would you advise the average citizen, Joe on the street, how can they become more involved, push back at a level that they may be, at an introductory level, grassroots level, even lower than grassroots, an individual level that can start to become engaged in pushing back against that, responding to that?
Absolutely.
Putting that first toe in the water of engaging from point zero.
First, the first and foremost piece of advice I would give is do not consume your sole basis of information from corporate media. ABC, CBS, NBC, and the local affiliates here in the metro area, the Star Tribune, Pioneer Press. If that is your sole source of information, those outlets, you are going to be uninformed and misinformed because these outlets, they have a clear agenda. So what needs to happen? People need to empower themselves with information. And one I think key to empowering with information is to diversify the sources of news. And so it could be from social media, it could be from alternative websites that are not the mainstream, and having a diversity of input of information helps to create a better informed citizen. Once a citizen is better informed, they then need to get engaged by showing up at the city council, by showing up at the school board, by reaching out to their school board members, by reaching out and having conversations, setting up coffees or being involved, meeting with their elected officials at the council level or at the legislative level, senators and state representatives. Once they have information that is not guided by emotion, which is what corporate media so often does, is they use keywords, they use headlines, they push certain amounts of information that are designed to inflame emotion that causes people then to act in an uninformed manner that is not healthy and doesn't advance, again, the greater cause of maintaining our republic, maximizing individual liberty, which is the foundation of our country for 250 years. And so what people need to do is be empowered with information and then get involved, whether it be showing up and contacting those the elected officials, as I mentioned, or organizing with like-minded individuals. Each and every one of us as elected officials needs to be held accountable. And we can only be held accountable when there's transparency out there. And that transparency is ensured when people are informed. And so if people are informed and they're involved and they're talking with their elected officials, that is what I would say are the beginning steps of ensuring that we right this ship, that we start going away from where we are in a very destructive path and back to what human history demonstrates as a constructive, productive perseverance of our great republic.
When we're looking at the concept of approaching, attacking, or confronting efforts like DEI, like critical theory, like these other social behavioral agenda items that are being pushed in the education system and in other social structures. What are resources that parents and or peers, what are some resources, what are some avenues to seek out more information that is counter to the, for lack of a better word, programming that is occurring in the educational structure? Where would you point someone who is beginning to go down that path of seeking information to confront these things?
Yeah, totally. Well, what I've seen in the context of education, I have seen organically now a number of parent groups. So one of the silver linings, one of the positives of COVID and that whole era has been school, distance learning, working from home, parents actually able to look over the shoulders of their children and see the curriculum, see the content that they're being exposed to, their children are being exposed to, or the lack thereof. And that has developed many parental groups because of their newfounded awareness and understanding of what's happening. We're seeing parental groups form at the local level. Now, how do these parents meet each other? I've seen a number of local communities, whether it be through social media or whether it be through email distribution lists, they are forming groups. Now, how do you find these groups in each community? It's going to be community specific.
Right.
But in each community, I would start by looking at social media. Almost every community that I'm familiar with where a parental group has organized and begin to share information, they have a social media site out there of some kind. They go by various names.
Some sort of presence, a page, a channel.
And once you can find that, you just need to find out what the name of the group is, where they meet, who the other people are, and then begin to get involved. There's no one-size-fits-all answer to that question, but I can tell you that these local groups are forming and do exist in many communities across the state. And if there isn't, be that parent, be that active citizen, that proactive citizen to start the group. Because every journey, as we all know, the old adage, every journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And somebody needs to take that first step.
In a nutshell, it's an election year, a number of different offices, House, Minnesota legislature, House. Why is it so important we take the House back this year? Why is it most critical?
Absolutely. Well, we have seen the result. So our system of government, our great republic, our constitutional 3 branches of government, were designed to have friction. We're designed to have an adversarial relationship. Each branch was designed to be selfish with its delegated power. The legislative branch is supposed to write the law. The executive branch is supposed to execute the law that the legislative branch signs or creates, passes. The judicial branch is supposed to interpret that law. But instead, what we're seeing now, and each of those 3 branches, by design, is supposed to be selfish and retain their power. And when any of the other branches begins to encroach or infringe on their power, their delegated authority, they are supposed to push back against that branch. But instead, what we're seeing now under this trifecta, with one-party control, you have the executive branch telling the legislative branch, because it's the same party, what bills to write and the exact verbiage that should be written. The executive branch is not supposed to do that. You're seeing a whole host of things happen. Now you're seeing the Minnesota Supreme Court, all 7 members of the Supreme Court are nominated by Democrats. They're all Democrats. You have Democrat Supreme Court, Democrat executive branch, and then Democrat-controlled legislative branch. Because they're all of the same party, because they all have the same leftist, radical, progressive, big government mindset, they're more loyal now to the party than they are to the republic. And what we need to do is take back the House to break that single-party control, to bring us back to some semblance of a need to compromise, to have that adversarial relationship between the bodies or within the legislative body, because the best policy is going to formulate when you have opposing forces. But when you have one party controlling everything, you don't have the alternative voice. 49% of Minnesota is being ignored. They're being steamrolled, and that is not the way to advance the best policy in this state or any other state.
Senator Lucero, thank you very much.
Hey, I always appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Very much a pleasure having you this evening. Thank you for joining us on Republican Roundtable. I'm Sean Holster. Till next time.